also the Zip Realty guys. Yeah. Okay. And so you're going to do the appointing, or is it how?
Leave it off.
And if there are any sort of introductions in the industry or anything like that I could do for you, let me know.
Yeah.
Happy to help. Good afternoon. Welcome to all of you. I'm Rich Lyons, Dean of the Business School here at Berkeley-Haas School. Welcome to today's Dean's Speaker Series. As you all know, this is our highest level speaker series. We are also putting it out in a live virtual webcast. So welcome to the people who are with us in that way today. This speaker series focuses on leadership and sort of where are the frontiers of leadership going. And we're hearing from people, as you know, from lots of different industries and getting some good perspective on how leadership is evolving. And today's speaker, Mr. Pete Flint, is certainly an exemplar of let me call it Bay Area leadership. It is innovative, it's entrepreneurial, it's very fast moving, and we'll get a sense for what he is up to today. His founding of 2 successful startups is an illustration of the impact of what we talk about around here, namely question the status quo. Pete and I were just talking about that notion, constantly asking ourselves, isn't there a better way to do this? He is great at it. Undaunted by the heavily regulated environment of the real estate sector, he co-founded Trulia. That was 2005. Today, Trulia is one of the largest and fastest growing real estate websites in the United States. More than 55 million unique users every month, the majority of which comes from mobile. Prior to Trulia, he was part of the initial launch team of Lastminutecom, a leading European online travel website. As head of interactive marketing and business development, he helped grow that company, Lastminute.com, to more than 2,000 employees in 12 countries and over $1 billion in annual transactions, resulting in the company's acquisition, that was 2005, by Travelocity. He's been recognized as one of Fortune magazine's top tech disruptors, one of the most admired CEOs in the San Francisco area by the SF Business Times, also Forbes magazine most powerful CEOs under 40, and many other recognitions. He holds a master's degree in physics from the University of Oxford. His MBA is from Stanford GSB. Today, Pete will share his experiences of starting, building, and scaling marketplace businesses, both lessons learned and also opportunities ahead for all of us. We'll have the chance to ask questions of Pete following his remarks. Please do be thinking about your questions in advance, and of course, as usual, we'll ask you to use the microphones for your questions so that we can capture them on the web and on the virtual. So let's all welcome Pete here today. Thank you, Pete.
So thank you so much for inviting me to talk this afternoon. As some of you may know, I started Trulia while I was at business school. So I kind of know these drills and I know these lines. So if you want to tuck in and eat your lunch, I'm not going to be offended. But no cold calling today. So, but actually, coincidentally, 10 years ago, this week was the week that Trulia launched back in 2005, and I'll share a little bit of the story of Trulia. And then 3 years ago, coincidentally, this week, we went public. And I'll share a little bit about kind of how we scaled the business during that time. So what I want to do today is to talk about marketplaces. As the Dean said, I've been involved in 2 marketplace businesses and share my experience of developing marketplaces. Some of the transformations that we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years and some of the opportunities ahead, and then some lessons learned. And marketplaces just have a very, very special place in our society. You look back over millennia, marketplaces have transformed our society, have transformed our economy, and with the rapid evolution of technology, that pace is accelerating. So we're seeing this massive transformation in our economy, which we're seeing in the Bay Area very acutely, and I'll share some of the experiences that I've seen. So we're living in very different times today. If you think back just 5 to 10 years, entire industries have been disrupted in a way that perhaps we couldn't have imagined 10, 15 years ago. Billion-dollar businesses are built overnight. Brands that are hugely valued are being transforming industries. You've seen how Uber and Lyft have transformed transportation. Airbnb, hospitality. Trulia and Zillow have transformed real estate, and you see how talent and recruitment is being transformed by LinkedIn. So these are really remarkable times, how we've seen these industries almost suddenly be transformed by these startups, these incumbents, all of which, as you can see, are actually from the Bay Area. And so what's going on? So what's driving this rapid transformation of these pretty traditional industries? So there are three fundamental catalysts that are driving this transformation and building these substantial businesses and out executing many of the incumbents. So those three catalysts are economic catalysts, societal catalysts, and then technology catalysts. So by way of example, let's go back to 2001. So in 2001, in the economy, the economy was in the toilet. These were kind of tough times for business folks. The irrational exuberance of the tech sector created many companies like, you may not remember, but Webvan and Cosmo were extravagantly funded and then quickly went bankrupt. In our society, in America, things were bad, but they just got a lot worse after September 11th, and people were very fearful of that environment. And then on technology, you started to see the widespread adoption of broadband. So access to fast, cheap, reliable internet became available to the majority of households in the US. And out of this time, remarkable companies were built and scaled. So Google, Priceline, eBay, many companies were scaled during that time. And during that time, I was part of the management team of Lastminutecom, which we recently took public. And we thought we were doing pretty well. And then the double whammy of the stock market collapse and September the 11th meant that it sort of felt there could be no worse time to be in the travel industry. People were poor, people were fearful. Can you imagine getting on a plane during that time? These were tough times. But we had a proposition that was very attractive to consumers. We were helping them find deals and providing transparency to a sector. And we were also helping suppliers to distribute at very low cost in a way that couldn't have been done before, the inventory really helping that business. So it was during that time that the business really took off. Again, in 2008, we saw the global financial collapse. Then in substantially declining home prices, we saw a dramatic rise in foreclosures. People were fearful about their homes. They were fearful about their jobs, obviously. The real estate industry was pretty much on life support. And then we also saw on technology side, we saw that the iPhone launched in 2007, and in 2008, you started to see the emerging momentum around this platform as a widespread technology platform. And again, out of that wreckage of the housing market, billion-dollar businesses were built. At Trulia, we started the business in 2005, providing information to real estate searching consumers and marketing services to real estate professionals. And it was only in 2008 that the business really took off as consumers craved that information in a way that wasn't available before. Equally, Airbnb started a little bit later than us. That enabled consumers to generate additional income. So while these were extremely tough times, it enabled these businesses to scale. So where are we in 2015? So it feels like the economy is doing pretty well. And you're seeing, amongst other things, consumers spend their income in search of convenience. They're looking for convenience. So you see adoption of services like Instacart, obviously the transportation services, Munchery. These businesses are growing rapidly. In that society, many of you are digital natives. You grew up with the internet. It's a collaborative economy, sharing economy. You do things on the internet and using collaborative platforms in a way your parents just couldn't imagine. My parents couldn't imagine. Consumers very comfortable collaborating and sharing with complete strangers. And now you're starting to see the emergence not just of supercomputing technology in your pocket or your desk. You're starting to see it in your cars, in your homes, on your wrists. These internet devices are becoming pervasive. And that in itself creates tremendous opportunities for transformative marketplaces, just like we've seen in the previous economic growth periods of 2001 and 2000, or economic downturns of 2001 and 2008. So everything's great, right? The economy is doing pretty good. There's unicorns on every corner. There's buyout fever in the air. The economy is good. But we know that's not going to last forever. The growth of the last 6 years has been incredible, but markets are cyclical. Things change. And perhaps the sort of volatility, I'm at a business school here, so you guys track this stuff. So the volatility driven by China, a few weeks back, maybe that's a sort of canary in the coal mine for the future. Who knows? These can be scary times for young companies, but they're also times of tremendous opportunity. And as I think about my own experiences during those times, back in 2001 and 2008, it was a time where I really thought my career was going to collapse. But in fact, it was a time when my career really took off. It's not a question of if or when there'll be a downturn in the economy. It's about how do you profit from that? What is the opportunity that you can take from that? And how can you use it to your advantage? So I love this quote from Winston Churchill. If you're going through hell, keep going. So in 2001, Lastminutecom, we saw the attacks of September the 11th and the kind of shutdown, the travel industry kind of shut down. In 2008, we saw the housing market collapse. And during those times, our advisors saying kind of cut staff, get profitable. But we had the vision, the stamina to think of the business in a way which enabled us to not only survive that time, but thrive. We focus on the long-term opportunities ahead. We rebalanced our team. We changed our strategy in a way that enabled us to build ultimately very, very successful businesses. And looking back to those times, it was I think precisely because of the struggle that we went through, it created a foundation for a business that ultimately became highly successful. It created a culture, it created a discipline, and it created a sort of economic platform that, as we came out of that, the businesses became highly successful and highly valuable. So and the reason is during those downturns, it's an extremely valuable and exciting time to build a marketplace business. there's massive supply and demand dislocation. Being a new provider and matching supply and demand during that time creates tremendous opportunity. Competitors distracted. Particularly big competitors, they're trying to navigate a market. They're often unable or unwilling to change and face the new realities of that environment. Substantially lower operating costs. You can negotiate more heavily with vendors. More talent's just available. There are less jobs, and there are good people leaving bad companies. And consumers are cost conscious. They're bargain hunting. We saw in travel, we saw in real estate, consumers flock to our platform in search of bargains. Consumers flock to Trulia to try and understand what's going on in the real estate market. So in good times or bad, there's tremendous opportunity to build businesses in that environment. And not only as you look over the last 5 to 10 years, there's been this sort of dramatic change and emergence of these businesses. You look out over the next 5 to 10 years, we ain't seen nothing yet. The pace of change is only accelerating, driven by the pervasiveness of these devices. Smartphones enable you to transact with anyone regionally, locally, globally. And you can do that 24/7. So you're able to connect with buyers and sellers in a way that was just impossible just a few years ago. And the economics of transacting, as well as starting and scaling businesses, has been dramatically reduced. So you're starting to see this as you look forward, good times or bad, the pace of change will just accelerate, which creates tremendous opportunities for budding entrepreneurs or existing businesses within that environment. So kind of what works. What I thought I would do is share like 5 sort of experiences and lessons learned from Lastminute.com and Trulia about kind of how we grew the businesses. And you know, what I find most interesting is growing the business during the challenging times. It's easy to say, okay, we kind of raised some money and then we hired a bunch of people and then we did some marketing. It's more interesting to when things were tough. What did you guys do? So, firstly, solve a real problem. As I said, I started Trulia shortly after I came to business school. So I came to business school in 2004. In 2005, I came to business school in 2003, and then 2004, I was trying to find someone to live in off-campus housing. And I started to see this radical transparency in other industries, in travel and e-commerce. And in real estate, it was just bizarre that I had to find information about homes for sale. I had to go and speak to a real estate agent. This is an enormous part of the US economy, but I had to speak to a real estate agent. And so we focused on this notion of providing radical transparency to consumers in the real estate industry. That was novel in 2005. As you might imagine, in 2008, that became essential. People, the real estate is often someone's largest financial asset, and you're starting to see this volatility, that they crave transparency within that industry. Not only did the consumers crave transparency, but the real estate industry craved transparency. Back in 2004, the majority of marketing spend was in newspapers. There's no transparency in how you spend your money in newspapers. They crave transparency. We provided that transparency to them, we're able to shift tens of millions of dollars from newspapers onto online and our platform. Equally, Lastminute.com. The notion there was connecting unsold flights and unsold hotel rooms with bargain hunting travelers. That could only be possible because of the internet. In 98, 99, it was they were good times, the business was growing, but in 2001, consumers were feeling poor, they wanted deals, and then suppliers with their high fixed costs needed a low-cost distribution channel. It was then that the business really took off. never let a good crisis go to waste. This is a judo move. So at Trulia, we were the first company to integrate foreclosure search into our platform. So there's huge amounts of distress inventory and short sales. And so consumers came to our platform to discover properties that were regular price, but also distressed properties. And we put out report after report after report into the media to gain awareness of our platform, what's going on with prices, good or bad. We wanted to share this information with the media. And that generated phenomenal engagement with our platform, as well as incredible awareness about what's the company Trulia at very, very low cost. Similarly, at Lastminutecom, we used the desperation of our suppliers to do incredible stunts. So Eurostar, the train connects London and Paris, we auctioned off an entire Eurostar train at bargain prices, generating incredible buzz, incredible awareness that enabled us to get significant consumer demand and also help out suppliers, and then also provide consumers with great deals. So 3, hitch a ride. So the fundamental problem that you're trying to solve in marketplaces is to solve the liquidity problem. How do you get scale on two sides of the marketplace and do that efficiently? And that's very hard for a new company to do when you're up against incumbents which have established businesses and billions of dollars of market cap or hundreds of millions of dollars of marketing spend. So the tactic that we use is to find another company or another entity which is scale, rapidly growing, and find a way to provide mutual benefit to that platform. And that enables you to get scale efficiently and effectively. So if you remember MySpace and YouTube, so YouTube provided embeddable videos, really the first major video platform to do that, embedded them on MySpace, embedded them on blogs and other companies, and that provided huge video usage for free. PayPal in the early days focused on power sellers at eBay, providing power sellers with an easy-to-use payment tool. They focused on those individuals, and that enabled them pretty quickly to become the ubiquitous payment platform on eBay, resulting in their acquisition. Trulia. So we started out, if you go back into 2004, the observation was that most consumers start their real estate search on Google. So they go onto Google to find information. But when they get to one of those results, it would just be a real estate agent asking them to fill out their lead form or give them a call to get information. So our approach in the early days, when we were just starting out in the student library, was to pack the pages with valuable and useful information about real estate, everything we could find, and then make sure that our pages linked as highly as possible within Google. We were very successful, and that enabled us to get millions of visitors pretty much for free, and then go back to our industry partners and get even better content and even more revenue from them. That was a way for us to hitch a ride and to get scale quickly. And there were many other companies like Airbnb and Craigslist, and then Zynga famously worked with Facebook in the early days to try and get scale. But as you can imagine, like any good hitchhiker, you need to know when to get off and to control your destiny and control your journey. So innovation is continuous. So innovation is constant. Incumbents need to be constantly reinventing themselves, as well as startups can look for incumbents who are unable or unwilling to innovate unable or unwilling to innovate on what the future looks like. And in these technology-enabled marketplaces, you see the innovation and execution is often driven by a focus on delivering continually better user experiences and technology adoption. And we've seen in our lifetime one industry where we've seen pretty much the whole arc. So in the vacation industry, we've seen 20 years ago, if you had a house in Tahoe, it would be you would advertise it in the San Francisco Chronicle, in the classified section. Then it went to Craigslist, a horizontal platform providing all manner of things. Then HomeAway provided a listing platform for that. And then you've seen Airbnb provide a transactional service so you can book and get real-time availability. And then probably the next evolution is going to be you'll be able to open a door with your watch and provide significant benefits to consumers to be able to access properties without the owner being there, as well as providing benefits to owners and landlords. And we've seen this arc in that industry, the vacation home industry, but we've seen you see the same trend in many, many, many other industries. And that creates tremendous opportunity, not just for incumbents to evolve and execute, but also for startups to think about things which the incumbent is unable or unwilling to execute on. And then finally, culture is your secret weapon. So in high technology environments, pretty much everything can be copied. You launch a feature, and then 6 months later, or even less, your competitor will have seen that feature, improved upon it, and launched it. Everything can be copied. And we know that in high entrepreneurial companies, just like in business schools, culture is everything. It enables you to retain talent, attract talent, execute effectively on initiatives, and be innovative. And it's essential in the hyper-competitive technology environment that we see in the Bay Area. So we thought about culture very seriously. In fact, we wrote down our cultural values even before we'd written a single line of code. And I was telling the dean before, as we were talking about culture, that we wrote down our cultural values, and then we tracked those values consistently and surveyed our employees and say, how are we doing against these cultural values? Are we doing good, or could we do better? And looked at ways from that where we were not doing great. We put in initiatives and programs to improve upon them. And we shared that with our team, saying, like, we're not doing very well in this area. Give us some ideas about things we can do better against it. And in retrospect, those initiatives and that program was hugely successful. And there were many proof points around kind of how they were successful. But probably the biggest one is what I call affectionately boomerang employees. So these are employees that leave for whatever reason, more money, bigger title, job change, and then come back. Sometimes 6 months, sometimes 2 years. And there's been many, many Trulia boomerang employees that come back because they realize that this is kind of the best place that they've worked. And that's, as a founder, that's very special to hear that. That's the best place to work. But the business advantage is even greater. And building that culture of high-performing employees that love their jobs, stick around in this hyper-competitive technology environment was absolutely critical to our success. And I think as I look back during the sort of very formative years of 2008, it was during that time that we truly galvanized that culture in the early years, and then that enabled us to scale very rapidly as we grew the business. So those are my 5 lessons learned. And so thank you for kind of listening to my experiences in building 2 marketplace businesses. And as I shared with you, I look out into the future, there are just incredible opportunities to to build and scale marketplace businesses. And these hyper-efficient technology marketplace is going to be the heart of this disruption. So whether it's at an existing company that you join when you graduate, or a new startup that you join, there are just tremendous opportunities to transform the future in a way that will be more rapid and more exciting than we've seen over the last 5 or 10 years. So with that, I think I'll open it up to questions, and happy to talk about anything from Trulia to MBAs or
Great.
whatever you guys want.
Please, and if we could ask you to use the microphone too, thank you. Right.
When you have these, sorry, my name is Sam. When you have these disruptive technologies, you often see the multiplier effect. What do you see the multiplier effect of Trulia and other real estate related type of technologies, what the world would have been otherwise, and that multiplier effect, how do you envision that?
You just, like, so I understand, when you say multiplier effect, what do you?
I would say if you give somebody a technology that impacts choosing where to live, efficiencies. So there's a lot of efficiencies that happen in the middle, and that multiplies across the entire economy. So I'm just trying to get a sense of what your vision is of how the economy will be better off with a technology like Trulia and efficiency in the real estate market.
So real estate's an interesting one. So it's, in the way that you kind of look at Trulia and Zillow are providing efficiency in the market, which is essentially lowering the marketing costs for real estate professionals and increasing the access to information for consumers. And I'm pretty negative on it transforming the way that real estate's transacted overall. I think it's making sort of incremental improvements about the service, but it's such a infrequent, high anxiety purchase that kind of people want to kind of do it in a pretty much traditional way. Companies that have tried to disrupt the fundamental model have not really succeeded. But there are other industries where you think, such as transportation and vacation rental, like Airbnb, which have created entirely new revenue streams for individuals, substantially reduced the cost of services. And when you think about these kind of big portions of the economy, they have dramatic opportunities to, when you look back over millennia, or sorry, not millennia, but decades, you've seen how the motor car has spurred the economy, the railway before it spurred the economy. These sort of hyper-efficient technology enabled transportation units can have dramatic impact on local and national economies. So, but I'm kind of, having been in the industry in real estate, I'm kind of not very, I don't see that much substantial change in the foreseeable future.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. So while we've seen dramatic improvements in being able to buy and sell a home really easily, it's still notoriously difficult to rent an apartment. Yeah. Can you talk about what hurdles exist for making that process easier, and what you envision it looking like in the future?
So it's super interesting, the rental industry. You kind of would have thought that it would be more rapidly transformed than the kind of housing industry. But my sense is that it's highly fragmented. So you've just got this massive fragmentation, and you've got fragmentation at many levels. You've got fragmentation where listings exist, meaning that there are multiple sources of fine information. But probably more importantly, you've got a lot of unprofessional participants in the industry. So it's like, you bought an apartment in San Francisco or in Berkeley in your 20s, and like you live somewhere else in your 40s, and you just rent it out to people, and you're unprofessional in the way that you manage that. So it's an unorganized industry. So it's very hard to corral the participants in the industry, and where the only company that's done it is Craigslist, and it's just crazy to me that 2015 and we're using Craigslist to find our apartments. But like with anything, these things don't last forever. There will be a point where the frustration and friction is to a point where a new entrant or an existing entrant executing well can redefine that experience and create an opportunity.
Cool, thanks.
Hi, sorry. Hi, I'm Pete. My name is Torser. I'm in the Berkeley EMBA program. And my question is the merger between, when you decide to merge with
Zillow.
Zillow.
Yeah.
During that time period, why did you decide to merge with Zillow? How do you see Redfin in the space? Where do you see Zillow competitive advantage to Redfin?
Yeah. So back in July of 2004 to 2014, we announced the merger of Trulia and Zillow, which you may be familiar with the brands, but they're quite similar companies in providing, and very similar visions. And we've known the team at Zillow for many years, and kind of really what happened in the evolution of the category was that the industry shifted, or our role shifted from being one of a product-driven industry to being one of a marketing-driven industry. So meaning that Trulia's product is kind of similar to Zillow's product. We kind of like quite similar inventory in terms of homes to sale, products, services. They were kind of very similar. And yet we shifted to this world where we started kind of like just going after sales and marketing. So spending, together more than $100 million on marketing, and equally spending a substantial amount on sales and signing up real estate professionals. And it's just not much fun to be in this sort of environment, and the only winner is Google and Facebook and the TV networks. And so as two public companies, you think, well, is there a better way to do this? So an opportunity came for us to bring the companies together. And it's great. It's going super well. That happened. The transaction closed in February. And the vision and the culture and the execution is very similar.
Hi, Pete. My name is Lucky Sandhu. I've been a practitioner in the real estate industry and space for the last 13 years, so your presentation really resonated with me. Thank you for coming. Two questions. What's next for you? And second, can you talk a little bit about insights in the space, the emerging space of crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, and real estate? Where do you see that going as we see the whole process of marketplaces being democratized and getting more of the crowds in? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I was telling the dean before that I have it's my second baby due in November. So like I'm kind of Mr. Dad right now, which is like a lot less stressful than running a public company. So I'm sort of in between, taking a deliberate sabbatical. So delighted to have the time to come to an event like this. And then on the side, I'm doing a lot of like angel investing and advising on technology, typically technology-enabled marketplaces. And then I'm on the board of Zillow, so I'm helping them in a kind of non-operational way. So to your question around crowdfunding and that space, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting. I think there's, when you sort of break it down, real estate is an asset class, which is traditionally very illiquid and very hard to trade. And so it seems a kind of natural evolution that there will be, like many asset classes, that it will become more liquid and more tradable in a way. But I also don't think it will be I don't anticipate a revolution in this way. You've seen you've seen particularly in kind of REITs and apartment buildings and different financial entities, how they've created not crowdfunding, but syndicated ownership. But I would, technology has a way of connecting buyers and sellers in a frictionless way, and so I suspect there'll be continued evolution, but I don't have a clear view of how it will evolve or what will be impacted.
Thanks, and congrats on the baby.
Thank you.
Hi there. I found your comments about culture really interesting. Will you speak about what you considered, I guess, the essential elements of Trulia's culture, and then how you went about identifying threats to that culture and handling them?
So we, so when we tried to identify, we went through a process of identifying our values. We really thought about three things. So one was like, what is the place that we want to work in? Selfishly, it's like, if I'm not happy spending 60 hours a week there, I kind of want to move on. Secondly, what does the business need? Like, is it an environment where you need lots of engineers or lots of salespeople or lots of customer-facing people, and then think about the elements of culture which will attract and retain and help that team execute. And then three is to be remarkable, because everyone wants to be one and two, and you have to stand out in this environment. So we thought about it in that way, and as I look at and we came up with a tenets, and this is not surprising stuff around teamwork, around innovation, around integrity, around feedback, around providing the similar set of values that you would have. But I think one of the, actually what we went through, halfway through the journey, sort of 5 years in, the original cultural values were created by myself and my co-founder when we sat in a library and just scribbled this stuff down. And it was good, but it wasn't necessarily a sort of deep internal feeling of these are our cultural values. We'd sort of created them and permeated them, but what we found was essential, like 5 years in, was the employees to really feel part of the process, and to have their voice and their impact about, well, kind of this is what we wrote on a whiteboard with no employees, and kind of this is where we are today. How do you think this is similar or different? And like with a lot of things, particularly with culture, bringing the employees as part of that journey and for them to identify with that cultural value, and feel ownership of it is hugely important to make it successful. It's very easy to preach on the high, these are our values, go do it. But it just doesn't work. It's not authentic. So we spent a lot of time and a lot of initiatives defining those values collectively, not using a process where there's culture carriers within the organization, people that would, we think, really exemplify the culture and the environment, and then getting them to drive that process. That was a key part of how we did it.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Abby Scott. I'm on the staff here at Haas. I just wanted to go back to marketplaces, and I really liked what you said about building to the future. And I'm curious, as you think about it, sounds like you're on a number of boards, as you think about business models for marketplaces and the future, where do you think business models for marketplaces are headed?
So it's, I think there's no golden rule in this. You sort of look at, I was on the car over here and listening to Spotify and then flipping to Pandora and in a way these are marketplaces, right? They are connecting artists with listeners. And there's been a lot of, some of them are freemium, some are subscription, there's a download model. And you might think it gets closer to the transaction, such as sort of Airbnb, but actually the consumer benefits when it's kind of, okay, I pay my $10 a month and I get everything for free. So I don't think there's a golden rule here in terms of saying this is the evolution of the marketplace. You think generally it gets closer to the unit of value. As you add more transparency and more liquidity, you get what you pay for, so to speak. But there's also this dramatic thing around convenience overlaid on that. So having a fixed price, all-you-can-eat model, a la Netflix, which again is in some ways a marketplace between content and viewers, is a far better consumer experience. So those are as I think about it, those are the two axes, convenience and then associating delivery with value with the things to focus on.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for coming. I was just hoping you could tell us a little bit more about the experience of starting a company while at business school, and if you have a couple of key lessons learned that you could share with us.
Yeah, good question. So I conceived the idea as like trying to find somewhere to live between my first and my second year. And I spent the entire second year kind of writing the business plan, researching it, and I knew nothing about, I didn't know where Georgia was, like, let alone like anything about the US real estate market. So I was definitely a student in many things. One of the benefits of starting a business or thinking about starting a business at business school is that I sort of sense there's an intellectual philanthropy within the business community, meaning I would phone up senior executives at real estate companies or other organizations and they listen to me. Whereas a year later when I was like, Trulia, what's that? Like, who are you? Are you like a competitor or are you what is that? It was entirely different. They weren't sure whether you were a partner, a competitor, a threat, or just crazy. But if you phone up and just said, hey, I'm from a business school, I'm doing this project on real estate and technology, can you answer a few questions? It's like, sure. And that was huge. Huge in a way that enabled us to get up to speed and learn. And people will, a lot of very busy people will give me 50 minutes to hear about for them to share their perspective on an important topic. So that's one. The second is innovation often happens at the intersection of disciplines. And this environment is like none other for having smart people who are in an environment in very, very different disciplines. And so for you, at that time, I was kind of more of a business guy than a kind of tech guy. I could just go over to the computer science department and ask kind of quite esoteric questions around search engines and data, and there would be people that would share that. Equally, I could chat to people in real estate department to try and figure out how residential real estate was organized, and that intersection of disciplines creates tremendous opportunities. So at a business school, you have access to that in a way that is truly unique. So I would highly, and you can fail, right? You can learn and fail and make mistakes in a way which is just a little bit harder when you're not at
finish your homework first.
Thank you.
Hi, Pete. Thanks a lot for coming. My name is Armin.
Hi.
You talked about transparency and also the real estate agents being the gatekeepers to the real estate market. How did you get them onto your platform when you actually were taking away some of their competitive advantage?
Yeah, good question. So ultimately, it was providing a lot of value back to them. So we provide, back then and still today, a lot of free leads and a lot of free traffic and a lot of exposure. So real estate agents want to market homes, and we had a massive audience to do that. But there have been the gatekeepers to this information, and you ask a lot of back then. You speak to a lot of people in the real estate industry, and they would be, if they had the choice, they'd like to disinvent the internet. They just want the internet to go away, and you can explain to them this is just not going away. And you need to expose your information and yourself to consumers. And that was hard. The average age of a real estate agent is the profile of a real estate agent is a 55-year-old woman. And you and you try and sort of communicate the nature of technology transformation is extremely hard. But the evolution was, for them, is really about moving beyond data to insight. And real estate agents spend a lot of unproductive time sharing data with prospective clients. And the pitch is use your time to let technology to provide the data and the menial stuff. Spend your time with the customer. And we're not trying to disrupt real estate agents, but just trying to make it easier. Spend your time with the customer saying, well, the angle of this house is such that the light in the evening is really awesome for the garden, or this is near the school district, or the neighbor's a real asshole, and so don't move in there. All that stuff which real estate agent knows, which consumers which the internet and services like Trulia just don't know.
We'll have to make this the last question, please. Thanks.
Hi. So when you were starting Trulia and Last Minute, how did you go about finding your partners? What were you looking for? And could you talk a little bit about that process?
So my so maybe I used Trulia. So we worked with. So what I did, I wrote the business plan for Trulia while in the summer between my first and second year, and then I spoke to a kind of bunch of classmates about it, and we actually formed a team out of a class project, and had a number of individuals that were kind of part of that team, and then we started progressing this as an idea, and then okay, this has got legs, and then okay, we're going to do this, and it was actually during that process you kind of got to learn about kind of are those individuals complementary to you? Are they someone that you're happy spending 80 hours a week kind of working through this stuff? Are they truly peers to you in terms of kind of what they bring to the table as well as complementary? So it was really just a way of collaborating with someone and seeing how they can complement you, and looking at sort of like a founding partnership is a little bit like any relationship. You kind of have to make sure that people are going to grow with you and evolve and compromise, but also division of labor. It's like you do this and I do that, and if that is a good out of the jobs that need to be done, if that works out well, then it's probably going to be it's probably going to work out pretty well in the future.
So much in this talk and so many elements. He started with this idea of marketplace businesses as a category, right? And as most of us start thinking about the transformations we're seeing, so many of them are in that category, as he pointed out. Solve a real problem. And I love the examples you used of ways that being in business school can actually help you do the kind of customer discovery that helps you solve real problems. Terrific talk. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.